Welcome back to Cinemaflix Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. The absolute least I can do today is return to, my goodness, a series that I launched and then subsequently fell a little bit ill and just never returned to. And then other things kept popping up and whatnot, so yada yada yada. Better late than never. Episode 2 of the Band series, imaginatively entitled The Band. So this series is the band, this band is the band, and the album we're looking at today is The Band. Remember that. So, just like the first episode, which I will link to in the description for Music for Big Pink, because it was so long ago now, 4 months or something, probably 3-4 months. We're not looking at the ancillary material. This is not a review of box sets. I'm going to be doing a separate episodes at the end of the series about the actual albums, rounding up the capital rarities, and talking about the box set extras. So in this case, Live at Woodstock, not going to be talking about it. Get Up Jake, not going to be talking about it. Don't hold me to that though, because I do have a tendency to just waffle on and talk about whatever pops into my head. So 5 minutes I'll be talking about Woodstock, for another 20, who knows. Here we are then, 1969, with the sophomore effort and their most iconic album, The Band. So this is the 45 version, which means it's over 2 slabs of wax, but it is usually a single record. But this is by far their most iconic, their best, certainly their most identifiable. When people think of the band and their brand of Americana and Robbie's ideas, this is what they're thinking of. So we've moved on from Music from Big Pink, where it's very much the band, and we're very much into a new era, which has started pretty much as soon as they got a bit of notoriety. It started to take hold where Robbie's ideas are pushing them forward, and the other guys don't have as many ideas. Richard's starting to dry up. Levon and Rick, never the most prolific writers anyway, were also pulling back. In this case, it actually does a justice to the album that happened, because Robbie's concept of making an album about an America that probably didn't exist was aided by the fact that he was able to write so much of the material himself. So the idea of Robbie as the outsider looking in, as he was obviously Canadian, still is, lends itself to that. People from America couldn't make this album. Of course, Levon from Arkansas, but 4 of them are Canadian. It has to be the mythic America that an actual American would say, actually, that's not quite right. Yeah, it's not like that here. This is the West of the America of Wyatt Earp, of Doc Holliday, of medicine shows, and OK Corrals, and insert your kind of, I don't know, Gene Autry and Roy Rogers cliches here. You know the kind of stuff I'm referencing. It's on the next album too, in W.S. Walcott Medicine Show. So this is an album of what we think of America by a group who aren't Americans, ostensibly, but very much presented by an American, because it's interesting that Robbie uses Levon as his American avatar. So he knows that he needs an American voice to become this American, but he also wants to write from his own outsider's perspective. And who better to do that with than one of the most American voices ever, the great Levon Helm, seen here playing his most famous instrument, the mandolin, which he did play, but come on, Levon and the drums, I want that t-shirt. As with before, we'll have a run through the tracks, but let's talk about that album cover. First of all, again iconic, that wonderful shot by Elliot Landy of them on the dirt road. Garth looks like he's just come out of the 19th century, doesn't he? Very believable there. Robbie there. Rick's looking particularly grumpy. Levon's not happy being out in the rain, and Richard certainly probably had a rough night the night before. So yeah, this solidified their image as being completely out of time. They are not going to be wearing psychedelic outfits anytime soon. They're not going to be wearing John Sebastian's Tie Dye from Woodstock. Yeah, oh, I did say I'd mention Woodstock in 5 minutes, and we're exactly 5 minutes. Pardon me. Ooh, thank you. So yeah, they were never going to be, cliched like that. That you'd never get them mixed up with Jefferson Airplane, Santana, Grateful Dead, etc., etc. In fact, most of those kind of acts would start to follow in their path. The Grateful Dead would start to release these Americana albums like American Beauty and Working Man's Dead in this style, very much stripped back and getting rid of all the psychedelic noodling and going to the songs of the soil, purely inspired by the band. So on this album, we have no covers this time. It is all original material. But the interesting thing is, this music is so ubiquitous and so sounds of the soil that it feels like there should be some covers in here. It feels like some of these might be covers even though they're not. It feels like Stephen Forster could have written them 100 years earlier, but didn't. Bobby did, and in some cases Richard. We'll go through the tracks. So Across the Great Divide, written by Robbie but sung as only could by Richard. Standing by your window in pain, a suitcase in your hand. So you hear this slow intro and you think, what's this going to be? Try and understand you, man, the best you can. Boom, across the great divide. And it turns into this real fun boogie that's got quite a dark lyric about Molly and her partner has been a bit of a flanderer by the sound of it. Now tell me, hon, what you done with the gun? So it's a wonderful, fun, upbeat way to open it, and a total contrast to the way that music from Big Pink opened with Richard singing Tears of Rage, very mournful. This is upbeat and saying, we're going to be having some fun here. There's going to be, we're going to be taking you a slightly different direction this time. So the cover may be dreary, intentionally so, but we're going to have some tall tales. We're going to have some good times. Rag Mama Rag being one of them. Doesn't get much more fun than that. I mentioned Levon and the mandolin here, much obviously being much more associated as a drummer. Rick Danko, we obviously associate with the bass. His fiddle was the most prominent part of that, with the and I say fiddle rather than violin because I think it's more accurate, because what he does on the violin is more folk fiddle like. It's not perfect like a violin. It's very much rustic, sounds of the soil, country like, homespun. So I think that sums it up much better. And Rag Mama Rag is another fantastic track in which Levon inhabits this slightly misogynistic character who's telling his woman the way it should be. All you gotta do for me, mama, is rag, mama, rag. Richard's on the drums on this. So Richard, our piano player's on the drums. It's just illustrate why they're called the band, because they can just mix it up, mixing in the medicine. It's all over the place, and Garth playing some amazing stuff throughout it as well. Throughout this whole album, this is a great album turned into an iconic album by the little fairy dust parts that Garth spreads throughout it. And on this, Garth's the one playing the amazing piano parts in an intricate style that, love you Richard, but Richard was more of a boogie woogie style piano player. Garth was the master. It still is, still going, bless him. But yeah, what a track, an epic fiddle breakdown that is. It's, in terms of just pure fun, I can't think of a better way to open the album, with Great Divide and Rag Mama Rag, and then to end side one in the 45 version we get our first slower track of the album, one of the most famous band songs with them all, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. And that's not been played in a lot of stations now, just because it's sung from the southern perspective, and that's a shame because it's not glorifying the slavery at all. It's been said by far more qualified people than me that a lot of these poor farmers, Virgil Caine is the name of our poor farmer here, they weren't defending slavery, they had nothing to do with slavery, they couldn't have had a slave in a million years of working. They were just defending what they were told was their state. So it was portrayed to them as a patriotic thing. So it wasn't jingoism for the sake of it. They were just told, look, the Yankees are coming to take away your little piece. That you've not got much, but what little you do have, the Yankees are coming for it. So that's who Virgil Caine is. Virgil Caine is the name, and I served on the Danville train till Stoneman's cavalry came and tore up the tracks again. By May 10th, Richmond fell. It's a time I remember oh so well. The night they drove old Dixie down. So it's sung from the point of view of a survivor of the Civil War who looks back and remembers the tragedy, who remembers the horror, and then in the third verse, remembers his brother, who was just 18, proud and brave, till a Yankee laid him in his grave. But he swears by the mud below his feet, you can't raise a cane back up when he's in defeat. Wow, it's Robbie's most American song ever, and it is perfect. Again, this sounds like it could have been written 100 years earlier. As a survivor of the Civil War, could have penned it. It's not, obviously, it's a modern track, it's a contemporary track from 1969, and when you think, my goodness, this is the same time that the Beatles were recording Abbey Road, and you think how different the band were to popular culture, how absolutely insanely different, but how wonderful. And Levon gives a vocal here on the night they drove old Dixie down that illustrates why I've always said if there's a Mount Rushmore of singers, it doesn't necessarily mean the best singers. Levon is one of the best singers ever. This band's got 3 of them. But Mount Rushmore of presidents didn't mean the best presidents, it meant the most iconic presidents, and the one that commissioned it. So Mount Rushmore should be representative of America if you're talking about the singers who should be on it. And so for me, Levon Helm has the most American voice. It's the Song of the South, not the Disney version. Let's not get into that quagmire. But yeah, Levon, Johnny Cash, those are American voices. Those are voices that a Brit can't replicate. The Beatles couldn't have pretended to be Levon or Johnny Cash. They could pretend to be Elvis. They could pretend to be Little Richard, Chuck Berry. They could just about try that. They couldn't pretend to be Levon Helm. You have to grow up in West Helena and Arkansas to really have that cadence. Rick gets his first vocal on a track called When You Awake, and that is a co-write between Robbie and Richard, oddly enough, and it's a song about a grandfather giving advice to a youngster, and it's very tender, very innocent, and very, very unusual, because although it sounds mostly underplayed and acoustic, Garth's playing an almost fairground organ underneath it all, which gives it a very whimsical quality. That with earphones you think that's not what anybody else on the earth would play on this song. They would just play something very simple. But Garth's taken on board that this is a song for a young person. So carnivals and fair rides and things, genius. There's a reason Levon called him the Professor, and what a vocal from Rick. If you want someone to sing with that kind of childlike wonder, Rick's your man. He has that wonderful ability, All he told me I'm a fool. Walked on down the road a mile, went to the house that brings a smile, sat upon my grandpa's knee. What do you think he said to me? And that's when Garth's organ comes in, playing the most ridiculously off-kilter stuff, but works perfectly in the context. And it's Rick and Levon who double-track the vocals there. When you wake, you will remember everything. So it's like Levon's playing the older man, and Rick's playing the younger man, remembering what Ollie told him. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Again, genius composition. So you've got 2 members of the band in Richard and Robbie doing the writing, but the voices are Rick and Levon, and the genius playing is Garth. The band, ladies and gentlemen, the band. And what a great fade out with the I gotta get deep with the captain's daughter. You know, you're gonna tell one another. You just he starts almost scatting, just kind of come up with lines, and it just fades out. Just gorgeous at the end. It ends. It's lovely. Upon Cripple Creek, another song that's very much synonymous with the band. One of the most famous songs. Garth plays well, one of his brilliant additions here, the clavinet, Jude's harp, being added to this is just stunning. You know, the things that he adds to this, the texture that he adds to it, with the ability that he adds to come up with unusual parts. And I could just repeat myself ad nauseum on these, but I'm trying to come up with something individual for each one. Levon brings a different vocal here, so he's not Virgil Caine. Our protagonist from Cripple Creek is a bit of a jackwad who's looking to have a good time and remembering a little Bessie girl he once knew. So first of all, he plays it with a twinkle in his eye. Levon does. When I get off of this mountain, you know where I wanna go. Straight down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico, to Lake Charles, Louisiana. Little Bessie girl I once knew. She told me just to come on by if there's anything she could do. Up on Cripple Creek, she sends me. Up on Cripple Creek, if I have to speak, she mends me. I don't have to speak, she defends me. A drunkard's dream, if I ever did see one. And then you get these wonderful parts that are like Jimmy Rogers with the yodel-a-hoo, yodel-a-hoo. It's like Blue Yodel by Jimmy Rogers. Quite an obscure reference for a 37-year-old Scotsman to make, but there you go. You know, the part's so joyous, this track, the part where Levon sings, sticks a donut in my tea, hee hee, with total abandon and joy and glee. It's absolutely breathtakingly fun, and it's a total stomper. You can almost feel Levon smashing his drums, you know, doom, 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 doom. Oh, it's phenomenal. And you notice I've not mentioned Robbie's guitar playing there much, because Robbie is so content at this point to be like Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. He doesn't need to be the musician. He's perfectly happy being the composer. And he doesn't do any vocals. After his one on Big Pink, we're not going to hear Robbie sing again until Islands, unless you count Woodstock. Then we move on to probably the saddest band song ever, Heartbreaking, written by Richard and Robbie, Whispering Pines. It's just the most gorgeous ballad I think I've ever heard in my life. Richard will break your heart. He has this aching tenderness, standing by the well, wishing for rain. You know, I will wait until it all goes wrong with you inside. It's so fragile and so delicate. It feels like it's all about to shatter like a pane of glass with a crack in it. You know, it's all just going to splinter further and just completely collapse. One massively underrated thing about it is, yeah, Richard's vocal rightly is lauded as being stunning, breathtaking, but Levon matches him beat for beat. Levon does the harmonies, and Levon, who normally is the stomper with a face like that and doing some good old boy stuff, he's able to do the tender stuff as beautifully as you can imagine as well. So he's there doing the wishing for the rain. So he's so quietly doing this beautiful vocal. If you haven't really listened to Levon's parts, put on headphones and re-listen to Whispering Pines, and listen just for Levon, especially on the third verse. Sorry, his parts are just breathtaking. But yeah, it breaks me every time I hear it. Again, we've got some wonderful stuff on it from Garth, who's taking charge of the piano for that one, and it's actually quite difficult to listen to. John Simon plays on it as well, the producer of the record, it should be noted. The wonderful producer of the record. And that takes us to side 3, but we'll stop in the middle to talk about the album itself. The album, the first record, as we know, was devised in the basements of Big Pink and recorded and whatnot. This was not an East Coast album, for all that it looks like it should be from the South or something, or maybe Woodstock. It was recorded in LA at a house that Sammy Davis Jr. once owned. The guys sent out John Simon on a kind of recce to LA and said, find us somewhere to record. We're not recording in Capitol Studios with suits walking around and coming into meetings. And no. Ixnay on the suits there. So they found this place, thought it was enough like Big Pink, and got round to soundproofing it, putting mattresses up against the walls, and they had their own little club again. The boys' club was back, and yeah, that's where they recorded this. So John Simon, not just a producer, really, as I said in episode 1 300 years ago, really the sixth member of the band. You know, he's literally going out there scouting locations for them and things. You know, it's quite something. And he's on here playing tuba, electric piano, high school, a bit of a joke, peck horns, and he engineers it as well as produces it. So yeah, although Joe Zagradino and Tony May also do some engineer work on it. So I'm not giving you all credit, John. Back to the record. That's just an intermission there. I like that. I'm kind of throwing the information out halfway through. Jemima, surrender, I'm gonna give it to you. Yeah, can you tell who sings that one? It's the first chorus of the album, but the only chorus of the album for Mr. Levon Helm. This is a pure body rocker, body with a B-A-W-D-Y. It's just an old school rocker, this. Levon is singing to this woman, Jemima, to surrender, and believe me, that is exactly what he's singing about. What you're picturing is what he's saying. I'll bring over my Fender and I'll play all night for you. Yeah, he's not talking about the guitar brand there, folks. Yeah, it's a devious little track. It's a little, as Levon said in the last waltz, you know, this is the kind of, when the families will go home, you could bring out the darker material, the blue material. This is probably a bit what he was thinking when composing this one with Robbie. So yeah, really fun. Not one of the best tracks musically, but to be honest, after Whispering Pines, you need something that's going to perk you. Just, you know, that was a bit Samosh. I need something just to get me back in the mood. And then we come to a solo Robbie composition, Rockin' Chair, which is sung by Richard, and he plays harmonica on it as well. It's about two old sea dogs reflecting on their time in the Maritimes, and it's a phenomenal track. You know, it sounds like I'm just gushing all over this album, but it is one of the most iconic albums, so I think I'm entitled to. Yeah, hang around, Willie boy. So he's got a totally different voice from just a couple of tracks earlier where it was, you know, standing by the well, singing very high, not quite doing his falsetto, but he's singing very high. And here he is with his rich Ray Charles baritone thing going on, with Rockin' Chair. Yeah, that old rocking chair won't go nowhere. In fact, Levon does play the mandolin in this one, so hey, I did wear the right t-shirt after all. Yeah, slow it down, Willie boy. Your heart's gonna jump right out on you. Yeah, I spent my whole life at sea, and I'm pushing age 73. Now there's only one place that was meant for me. Oh, to be home again down in old Virginia. Virginia, not Virginia, Virginia. with my very best friend. They call him Ragtime Willie. And what's great about that part is Richard's singing that, but then on top of it, Richard's double tracked with himself doing his falsetto. So he's going, with my very best friend. It's like, wow. Richard and Richard duet. This is good stuff. Look Out Cleveland, solo composition from Rocky. Yeah, Adrian, I just wrote a track for the band. Yeah, told you I go some strange places. Robbie writes this, and I don't know, do we need it just about the same place as Jemima Surrender? I'm not going to complain. It doesn't do anything fresh, but it is a hell of a rocker. It's one of the heaviest band songs, actually. Look out, Cleveland, storm is coming through, and it's coming right upon you. One of the first tracks where Robbie gets to reel away on the guitar, actually, or allows himself to wail. It wasn't an issue stopping him. He just didn't think it was appropriate for the material that had been on the album until now. Good rocker. Look out, Houston, there'll be thunder on the hill. Bye bye, baby, on your last old still. Yeah, cool rocker. Just a bit close to Jemima Surrender, probably. But then we go into one of my most underrated band songs. When people review this album, they never really talk about Jawbone, and that's by Richard and Robbie, and it's the story of a thief. And it's sung from his point of view, but he's not just a thief. He's a thief, and he digs it. He can't resist, but he loves being a thief. He's like Robert Redford and the old man in the bank, whoever it was called a few years ago. He absolutely loves it. This is his life. He doesn't want to do anything else. I'm a thief and I dig it. Oh, Jawbone. Yeah, everything starts with all the verses. It's the third time I've mixed up chorus and verse, which you don't want to do if you're sitting down and Courtney Ramian slang, because your chorus and verse is your ass. Every verse starts with "Oh, Jawbone, why don't you sit and moan? Oh, Jawbone, you know that it's stone for stone." Boom, boom, boom. And then goes into a more upbeat kind of tempo for the full verse itself. So fun. Again, with those exuberant choruses. I'm a thief and I dig it. Not to put down the verses themselves though, because those parts were like singing. They put your name up on the post office wall, put you on edge because they wrote it too small. Yeah, brilliant. I love that track so much. And you know just who to thank when you land right back in the tank. Yeah, so it's a playful robbery song. It isn't a sad thing. It's not a folk ballad. It's not a Jesse James by Woody Guthrie. It's nothing like that. It's just a pure scoundrel track, an absolute scoundrel track. And then, probably my favourite Rick vocal of all time. It's up there. I don't want to definitively say so, but is it better than Makes No Difference? Yeah, it is. The Unfaithful Servant. Just gorgeous. Unfaithful servant, I hear you leaving soon in the morning. Again, needs a fragility of Rick's style. Richard's voice was too honey-like, too smooth, and Levon's too accomplished, too together, too throaty. You need the fragility of Rick to pull off Unfaithful Servant. With the idea of a servant who's let down the mistress of the house and has been sent away. Yeah, that train is a-coming, and soon you'll be a-going. Let us not bow our heads, for we won't be complaining. Yeah, it's just with the whole it gets me emotional thinking about that track. It really does. Because there's something about it that just seems very Rick, even though it was written by Robbie. It's something about Rick's life that seems to incorporate. There's horns on it from John Simon and Garth, which are so mournful. You know, it's not saxophone and tuba with an upbeat tempo, Lee Dorsey style. You know, it's saxophone and tuba with a very mournful heartbreak to it. And then Robbie plays the most gorgeous guitar solo towards the end. The most gorgeous, just absolutely breathtaking. Nothing flashy, but just gorgeous. Yeah, absolutely adore it. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I can't be too literate about that track, because along with Whispering Pines, it kind of gets me a bit too emotional to even think about it. I don't know about you. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, even the bits where he's singing, I can see it in your smile, yet I can see it in your face. It just breaks my heart. I don't want to dwell on that, because I will start weeping on camera, and I've done that before. Down and down, 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 corn in the field. Pretty soon, carnival on the edge of town. King Harvest is surely come. Boom. I work for the Union, 'cause she's so good to me. So we've got Richard doing, again, another very baritone, wonderful vocal that gets more desperate as it goes along about this farmer who's going to lose everything, but he's been convinced that if he signs up for the Union, they'll save him, they'll save his farm, even though his horse Jethro, he went mad, and I can't ever remember things being that mad. But here comes a man with a paper and a pen, tell me how hard times are about to end. And then if they don't give us what we like, well then that's when we gotta go on strike. Richard does the high parts in the chorus, and then Levon comes into the chorus to do the corn in the field, and it's Richard doing pretty soon the carnival. So again, even on his own track, he will deliberate to Levon to play another character. You can imagine that is Levon playing the Union Man, and then Richard singing harmony on top, putting his voice way up. So on quite a lot of these tracks, Richard sings 2 or 3 different parts. It's remarkable. It's probably his crowning achievement as a singer of songs. As with Levon, maybe as with Rick, certainly with Garth doing his sonic texturing, and Robbie as a composer. So this is, I mean, that's the album over, but this is the most iconic album by one of the great bands of all time for a reason. It just is. Yeah, I mean, what more to say about it, folks? I mean, that's the album itself covered off, done and dusted in episode 2, pretty much just wrapped up. But I mean, here's some shots just to show you what the gatefold's like in 45 version, so that they are in the LA converted studio. Some cool live shots. The stuff you want from a, oh, look at Rick down there, that fretless bass. Kind of stuff you want from a good gatefold. And then I said we're not going to look at the extras and whatnot, but might as well just have a quick flick at the booklet. Look at that for Band of Brothers, indeed. Phenomenal stuff. That is a great picture. Levon looks great. I thought it was Ricky. Oh, don't want to put Beak out. And one of the iconic parts of the Reverse album cover is, of course, that quote. I'll be down to get you in a taxi, honey, but be ready by 8:30. Now, honey, don't be late. I want to be there when the band start playing. Yeah. Oh, gets me excited just thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, so look, this is how far they'd come from being unable to get any kind of record deal. They were all of a sudden on Time magazine's cover. Stunning stuff. Yeah, unreal. And then a couple more pictures. Richard's birthday. And there's Levon and Robbie in happier times. As we know, that wouldn't always be the case. However, it was the case at this point. This is one of the crowning achievements of American music. There's a reason why I gushed over every single track there, with the slight exception of Lookout Cleveland, because it is just a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece. So I'm going to leave it there. Episode 2 in the can. It won't be a long wait till episode 3, don't worry, because next time some of the members may be suffering from a lip condition we call stage fright. Until then though, stay very safe out there, and love and indeed mercy.